But Brandon, let's end the podcast talking about last year's Pac-12 South champion, and that will be the Colorado Buffaloes. And for every team except for the two California teams, we're going to focus on defense. Yes, we are feeling fine. The defenses just need to be talked about in this division. And the big thing for Colorado to kind of set things up is they're going to have a new coordinator coming in, former Kentucky coordinator DJ Elliott. He's going to take over a defense, Brandon, that was top 20 nationally in scoring and total defense. However, it's going to be a hard road to keep Buffalo in, or the Buffaloes in the top 25 this year. I'm going to be playing simple. They're not making a scheme change. They're still going to be 3-4. He's going to keep the Colorado terminology intact. Will that be enough to keep the Buffaloes a top 20 defense in 2017?
So again, like you said, they were 19th in total D last year, and they were very, very good, and that's why they were 8-1 in the conference and 10-4 overall. It was their defense, no doubt about it. But the biggest issue, it comes down to the secondary. So they lose three, not one, three all-star caliber playmakers to the nation's fifth most efficient pass defense. Now that's pretty big. Afalabi Laguda returns, though, at one safety position, and they're hoping that the replacements will fill in and they will catch on very quickly. That's the hope for Colorado, and they're going to have to. But they also have special team star Ryan Moeller at safety, and Isaiah Olivers are going to fill in another corner position. So they already have some guys picked out that they think will be able to fill the hole, fill the voids of some of those guys who are leaving. But that's not to say that they're going to feel it a little bit that those guys are gone. So that's going to be an interesting, probably work in progress for the first part of the season. And that's where we'll see how will Colorado react to that in the first part of the season. Will they be able to still pick up a couple of wins? Will we see a significant drop-off defensively that we did not see last year because of how solid, rock solid they were on the defensive front? So that's where I think coming in and being able to do a lot up front is going to be crucial. Being able to get a lot of pressure up front, being able to get a lot of good pass rush is going to take a lot of pressure off a secondary that's going to be in some transition. So if they're able to do that, they may be fine. But if they can't, and the secondary is exposed, that's where we really could see ourselves saying Colorado is really going to fall off.
So it's a theme here. Another defense that we're unsure about, and it's the secondary that we're looking at that could be the Achilles heel. And right now I'm looking at the schedule, and the schedule makers in the Pac-12 didn't do them any favors because based off of just passing, here are some of the quarterbacks that they're going to see this season. Washington, so they'll see Jake Browning. At UCLA, they'll see Josh Rosen. At Washington, they are going to see Falk and the Cougars. And then they're also going to be playing the Trojans, and they will see Sam Darnold. That is 4 quarterbacks that I think could get the better of this Buffalo team. And the thing with Buffalo coming into this year, and like I told you before we started to record this podcast, was basically I don't know how to feel about Buffalo this season. I don't know if I should make them like, yes, they will compete for the Pac-12 crown, or it's like, oh, they won it last year, but this year they're going to be the 4th best team in the division or the 3rd best team in the division based on whichever one of them, Utah or Colorado, does better. I just look at the defense, like you said, losing pieces, having a new coordinator come in. Yes, not changing the terminology will help, but really you got to find guys to fill in the pieces that you're going to miss. Also on offense, the big thing is they have a 4-year starter leaving who adds huge leadership to that team. He's gone. And now you have Steven Montez being your quarterback who, yes, he's a confident sophomore because he went 2-1 last year as a starter and had to play when your starter was injured last year. But this will be his first year kind of playing in that starting role. And when it comes down to him, he's got a gunslinger mentality, which means to me he's got to improve one thing, and that's the decision making. This could be a quarterback that, when quarterbacks have that gunslinger mentality, when I think of gunslingers, I usually like the prototypical one I think in my head is Brett Favre. Brett Favre was a guy, man, threw a lot of touchdowns, but hell yeah, threw a lot of interceptions as well. I worry about that this year for Colorado, that if, because they have this gunslinger at quarterback, are they going to be giving up the ball too much to defenses, and then that forces their defense to be on the field more, having to stop opposing offenses, especially in those 4 games I mentioned, Washington, Washington State, UCLA, and USC.
One thing that Colorado did a really good job of last year was being able to manage the tempo of games. And that's something that kept them in so many games. That's why they were able to pick up so many victories, and I think shock a lot of people last year to go 10-4 overall and then 8-1 in conference. Is they did a really good job of managing the clock. And that's because being able to have a really good running back in Phillip Lindsay, that helps. And now you've got an offensive line that last year was not great. They were okay, but they were not great. But this year now, you have 4 starters returning. Hopefully they learned a lot from last year, able to put that into practice this year, and are able to get better. They need to be better than what they were last year. But again, they weren't terrible, but they weren't wonderful. So that needs to happen. And giving Phillip Lindsay more running room and giving him more holes, that's really going to help out. And then at the quarterback position, you've got Steven Montez, who I think, Ricky, his toughest days are behind him. When they threw him into the fire last year after the injury at quarterback, I think now, going forward, it's just going to get easier.
Because you're the starter. You don't have to worry about the starter coming back.
Exactly. Your top 9 receivers return. You know who you're throwing to. This offense could still be very good. And it will be interesting to see what they're able to do, but I still don't think that they're the 10-4 they were last year, especially when you look at this schedule.
Yeah, and I don't either, because the thing that this season's going to come down to for the Buffaloes is, yes, you're experienced on offense, and yes, there's a lot of excitement around the potential of Montez. However, I look at the losses on defense, and the thing that doesn't sit right for me for some reason is I know what you guys are going to say, but Ricky, he didn't have a large sample size. 9-5 touchdown to INT ratio. I know that's 1 touchdown away from being 2-1, but I have a feeling that Montez might get into, being a younger quarterback, being that gunslinger mentality, might get into a kind of mindset of, I can do it. And the thing that might work as a negative for him is it's going to be a positive yet a negative. Kind of like what they say, oh, it's a blessing but a curse. Yeah, he's got all these weapons around him, but there might be a time where, because he's so young and because he has the mentality he does, he might be looking down the field going, you know what? I know my guy down there. I know he's good. I'm going to press it. And he throws it, leads to a pick, leads to a play that goes against Colorado, rather than, you know what, check down route, live to see another down, and go for the big play. I wonder if that's going to be the offense this year because of the personnel that they have and the guy that they have at quarterback. And I can't wait to see the turnover numbers, the differential for this year, because I kind of have a feeling, if I'm going to predict anything, that their turnover differential this year might be a negative number and not a positive number because of turnovers on the offensive side of the ball.
And you may not be wrong there. You definitely may not be wrong there, but at the same time, too, I think that Montez had a lot of good experience last year with being thrown into the fire, and hopefully he got a lot of his, I don't want to say kinks, but hopefully you get out a lot of your jitters and a lot of your mistakes in that time, and then he's able to grow up fast, and I think Colorado right now, a team that if they want to keep winning, they need that to happen.
Well, and that's the thing I will, like the kind of devil's advocate to my own point is, for example, the UCLA game. I'm going to use that as kind of the microcosm here. Threw 3 passes, completed 1, but also threw an interception. However, only threw 3 passes. Then you look at also the Michigan game. He went 0 for 7, but he only threw 7 passes. Idaho State only threw 10 passes. Washington only threw 12 passes. That was another one where he came in, and then at halftime they went back to the starter, and the starter threw a pick and a pick 6 and really put the game out of reach for the Buffalo. And I wonder if being the starter this year, the kind of devil's advocate side of it might be, well, he's not going to be thrown into the fire this year. He's going to be the starter from the opening minute and can kind of settle into the game rather than be, well, they got your starters out. Montez, get on in there, and have him run in to a game that is already maybe lopsided on one side. It's a close game and you're trailing in the game, and it takes a while to where it's like, well, I can't settle into the game because the game is already started and already going. Being the starter, he can kind of settle into games a little bit easier, being a 0-0 contest.
Exactly. And now, Ricky, let's take a look again at this Colorado-Buffalo schedule.
Okay.
Their first 3 games I would see as wins. So you start out 3-0. Arizona you have there's a 4th win, Oregon State a 5th win, Cal a 6th win, and then Arizona State a 7th win. And I would say this year for Colorado, 7 to 8 wins would be very good for them.
I'm going to say similar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, the 7 that you listed, I could see as wins. The big one to me that is going to determine 7 or 8 is the Utah game at the end of the year. Beat Utah, obviously it's 8. Lose to Utah, obviously it's 7. The other games, though, Washington, UCLA, Washington State, and USC, because of the losses on defense, because of a younger quarterback, and because of the teams you are going up against, at this point, I might put 0-4 into those games, especially the 2 California teams. I would take Darnold and Rosen over Montez and the Buffalo this year. Washington will be interesting because are they going to be as good as they were last year? I know they'll still have Jake Browning back leading that offense. And then Washington State, that's a road game for them. And also Washington State has a quarterback that will be in the NFL draft discussion at some level. Maybe not top 5, but he is going to be a guy that we talk about come NFL draft time. Those are the 4 games on top of the Utah. So they have 5 games where right now I'm putting a 1-5 at best in those 4 because the other ones, maybe Washington State, okay, 2-3 at best in those 5 games, but those are going to be the ones that kind of solidify what kind of a season we have for Colorado at the end after November 25th.
I completely agree with you. I feel like some of the games that Colorado won last year, they may not necessarily be able to pick up again this year, especially with a secondary that I'm not saying that they're going to be bad, but they're not going to be up to the standard that they were at last year.
And when you're going up against, especially in those 4 games I listed, 4 quarterbacks who are NFL draft worthy. I would say Browning, Rosen, Falk, and Darnold, all NFL draft worthy or NFL futures in their own individual futures going forward. So, I mean, that's going to be hard for them to overcome. However, what will we see from the offense? Can the offense keep them in the games? And really, for the offense, the only thing I worry about, and like I've said, is the turnover numbers. But before we push it onto them, Brandon, any final thoughts you have about the Colorado Buffalo?
Nope.
You guys know the deal. This is where we push it onto you guys. Let us know down below. What do you think about the defense for Colorado and the losses? How confident are you in Montez? I really want to get the pulse of a Colorado fan with your excitement. Are you excited? Are you not excited for Montez? What are you worried about when it comes to your young quarterback? Let us know what you think for Colorado ending the season. What record do you see? How do you see the season playing out? And also, thank you if you listen to the podcast fully on YouTube or Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or Stitcher. Thank you guys for sticking around with us. Another successful primetime podcast here. We will be back next week. I will be back. Brandon will be on vacation. You know where you're going this time, or you just staying around for an old staycation, as they call it?
No, I will be going to Marco Island in Florida.
Wow, going to Florida. Our Florida fans love us when it comes to our Gator and our Hurricane preview. So maybe you'll see Brandon walking around the streets. Who knows? But I want to thank you guys for the watching or listening. And as always, have a good day, everybody.